Hey everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we've talked a lot about robots on the show.
Yes, we love robots.
We've talked about robots that dance,
Yes.
jump,
Yes.
run, dog robots,
Yes.
microscopic robots that are self-replicating.
Yes.
That's
Terminator 2.
A little unnerving. Yeah, Terminator 2 robots that are
Yes.
going to kill us all.
Yes, exactly.
We joke a lot about the end of humanity, the robots kill us all stuff. But let's be honest, there are some real value to robots, especially in the workplace and in places like supply chain, warehousing, distribution, manufacturing.
More and more every day.
They work alongside workers to augment and improve their workflows, and
Cobots?
efficiencies. Cobots.
Can I use that word?
Cobots.
Yes.
That's a popular word. So that's our big topic for the day. We've got
it's a good
Mark
one.
Wheeler from Zebra joining us to talk a little bit about
Great expert.
what's going on in the world of robotics. What he's seeing in the market right now. Why maybe some folks are a little hesitant about this, or not sure where to start, where opportunities might lie. We'll get into some of the what the value is outside of just the general efficiencies and labor savings that most people assume.
Right.
This was a topic that was requested by one of our viewers. So a shout out to Cory McClelland from Arrowhead Resellers. Thank you so much for submitting this request.
Our resellers need to know this information.
That's
They're
right.
wanting to know.
Exactly. And Cory, stick around to the end. Some of the questions you specifically wanted answered, we are going to address to Mark towards the end of the show in the Value of the VAR section.
Absolutely.
All that again, plus our usual What's Tech Connecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today is Mark Wheeler. Mark is the Director of Supply Chain Solutions for Zebra and was given to us as the expert on robotics for Zebra. So that's, we're not the experts. That means we're relying on you. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate having you on the show. Tell us a little about yourself, your role at Zebra, and how did you become the robotics expert?
Great to be here, John, and thank you for the introduction. Yeah. So for Zebra, I look after our strategy in warehouse and manufacturing operations. Robotics happens to be a passion of mine that predates my 15-odd years at Zebra, going back to Carnegie Mellon. I studied robotics there back in the dark ages and built and deployed them for IBM in the 80s. So it's really gratifying to see all that's happening in the industry now that we have all these sensor and AI capabilities to make it all go.
Well, they're a legit expert. Not only just somebody who's gotten into it in this industry, but literally studied it.
Yes.
As you mentioned, back in the dark ages, before, robots were a regular thing, when it was just a dream, a science fiction dream, if you will, at times.
Yes, that is awesome.
Well, then, Mark, let's talk about the current state of the market then. Obviously, if you've been in this for a while, you kind of know where we've come from and where we are now. What is the appetite for robots in warehousing and manufacturing in particular, which I know are the strong points right now? What does all of that look like right now?
Yeah, well, I meon, it's certainly a time of rapid innovation and rapid growth. And there's some basic enabling technologies that are helping to make that happen. Lithium-ion batteries, as basic as that may be, the idea of a self-powered bot that can run for a shift or thereabouts. The energy density there is fundamental. The sensors, the LiDAR, the 3D cameras, all of that is just coming together to enable all kinds of innovation throughout the industry. We're seeing high double-digit growth, 20 to 30% compounded growth is expected in a lot of segments. And probably in 2025, both in warehousing and in manufacturing, each of those will be somewhere around $8 billion in spend.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a huge appetite. Not there, but when you look at it, and we've got all kinds of little studies that I think are that will in kind of put as a piece to this whole dialogue here. More than 3/4, 77% of decision makers agree that they need to modernize operations across their warehouse to remain competitive. So when you think about the appetite of robotics, I think that there's just a lot of conversation around it right now due to some of the labor shortages and all those types of things. But when you start to see some of the statistics that come out, there's an appetite, right? There's an appetite in the marketplace now. We just need to figure out, is this the right time, to start implementing some of those things?
Definitely. And Mark, I'll throw you a quick little curveball here. Obviously, Zebra acquired Fetch Robotics not too long back. So that says something about, what Zebra sees as happening here and the opportunity. What do you think Zebra saw in the market to say, hey, now is the time for us to get on board with robotics too?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do our research, our vision studies, and we publish them every year in various topics. We take a close look at the warehouse and logistics market probably about every other year, and it's some of the things that you reference. I reference some of the technological innovations that are making this market pop. You mentioned labor. For a number of years, even before the pandemic, most of our customers on the logistics and warehouse side cited labor availability as one of their chief concerns and their chief challenges. And the idea of having an operation, that's dependent on a resource that may be constrained in a particular market, particularly as we see the growth of e-commerce. We see the clustering of e-commerce fulfillment centers in different areas for good, logistics reasons. Need to be able to service a particular market. That creates challenges. So labor is certainly a huge part of that. The other part is just risk. I've been in this business quite a while, and for a long time, when a company looked at investing in automation, let's say in a fulfillment operation or any warehouse operation, it was considered to be fairly risky because the nature of the solution, it wasn't that flexible. And so if you were very confident in what the future would hold for you operationally, the SKUs, the orders, the customer service definition, all of that, then you could invest in conveyors and sortation systems and ASRS and get a good ROI, and that's all well and good. But if you did that and then you had a major change in your business, your order profiles changed, the customers decided that customer service meant something different, your SKU mix changed in a dramatic way. A lot of times those systems could not adapt to those changes. So there was a lot of both operational and financial risk associated with automating. And so a lot of operators either got burned or were very, very cautious about it. And one of the aspects that we see of these new systems, these AMR-based systems, is that they take away a lot of that risk.
Yeah, that's a really good, interesting angle to come at the risk profile. You don't really think about that. And we always poke fun at the pencil pushers that are still, in manufacturing, and they're using Excel.
Spreadsheets at best, yeah.
Exactly. But his point is valid, and we've talked about it many, many times where, hey, it ain't broke, so we're not going to fix it. And why would we want to put in this automation type of thing? So that's always been a bit of a headwind out there. But it is interesting, and it feels a little bit different with robotics. Now I don't know if it's a generational thing or just a coming of age type of a thing with the use of the technology, but it feels a little bit different coming into it. So,
yeah, I'd say so. Well, Mark, you referenced the fact that Zebra does these, vision studies and frequently checks in on the world of warehousing and supply chain. I looked at your one from 2019. There's one statistic that kind of popped out at me. 77% of respondents agree that augmenting workers is the best way to introduce tech, but only 35% know where to start. And I think that's a huge stat because, it's that, again, it's that understanding, like we get it. We know that there's a need for this. We understand the need for it even, but we're not sure where to get started there. And I know that goes beyond just robotics too. But so, what do you think are some of like the challenges, some of the misconceptions, the lack of resources? Like what's keeping supply chain leaders from getting started, and how can we help from the reseller side of things too?
Yeah, I think there's a number of misconceptions that might be slowing people down. We talked about risk already. The idea that, hey, the fact is you can start small, you can learn and scale, if it meets your objectives and meets, your particular operational needs. You don't have to do a major CapEx. In fact, you can do the whole thing on OpEx. You can go in as a service and deploy an AMR-based solution as a service and be OpEx positive, right? Without any CapEx at all. I mean, that is a possibility. So a lot of that sort of that risk, you can kind of set aside. One of the things that we're very focused on at Zebra, as you might imagine, is optimizing and integrating the human element with all of this, because it's very easy to be distracted by the big shiny object, which is the robot, and that which is taking away, typically in fulfillment operations, we're taking away the non-value added time, right? We're taking out the travel time, we're taking out the walk time, we're eliminating the need of that operator to physically drag the materials through the operation, whether they're doing picking or replenishment, either way. So we're making that job easier, but we also, in the process, we're actually increasing the pick density. So we're taking out that travel time, which is usually half the time of the picker, which means they're going to be spending a lot more time actually handling product, actually picking, which is what what we want. They're going to spend less time walking. We're going to take the miles walked out of the operation. They're going to have less physical effort because the bot's going to move the materials. That's all great. But in the process of, let's say, doubling pick density, it's now twice as important that the picking itself be as effective as it can be, so that we have the right tech to communicate to the operator what they need to do to verify that they did in fact do it. So think about wearable scanning and those kinds of technologies. And we do it in an ergonomically sound way. So we're not requiring them to do anything unnatural or any extra work or movements in the way that they use the technology. So all those things that we've been doing for many, many years actually are more important in a lot of automated environments than they were before.
That's really that's good. Talk to us a little bit about how software now is involved in that, because as I listen to you there, we've got this blending of technology, right? You've got the human factor, you've got the cobot coming in, if you will. We're trying to orchestrate the robotics around the human use, and that wearables, integrating that, trying to increase that. Are you seeing some moves on the software side as well, and the niche development there, or just what are some of your thoughts around software and how that's playing into how robotics is being integrated into it as well?
Yeah, it's a big part, certainly, of what Zebra is doing, with Fetch, integrating Fetch into our existing fulfillment edge capabilities for managing workflows in that way. There's really two kind of main challenges on the software side. One is managing the robotic solution itself. So you think about fleet management and understanding those issues and controlling the bots, tasking the bots in the optimum way. And the other is integrating it into the broader workflow within the facility. So that might be picking or replenishment or just a straight material movement. So all that has to be done with software. The reality is for basic material movement. So if you think about deploying one of these solutions that's say replacing a conveyor system, it's moving product from point A to point B, or replacing a lift truck. Again, moving product from point A to point B. There's very little integration necessary to make that productive. In fact, that you can get those things live with almost no integration within a few days. When you start to move into a fulfillment solution, where say we're taking over an entire fulfillment operation, or we're going to start integrating, maybe we're going to do something really fancy and start to task interleave replenishment and fulfillment tasks with both bots and people. That now you're into a more interesting, let's say, integration with the WMS at that point. But that's something that obviously we're very focused on.
Yeah, and I think that's where some of that complexity comes in, right? So now, to your point, if we're doing fulfillment of a particular good, well, now you're bringing in scanning, you're bringing in all these other types of elements that are going to be necessary to make that happen. The shipping element, all those types of things. And it'll be curious to see, because, robotics right now, as you think about it, and you've been spending a little bit of time talking about moving of materials around or making that process more efficient and bringing the materials to the worker that's in a particular pick station. But maybe taking it to the next level where it's now armed with scanning capabilities and labeling capabilities and things like that. Maybe is the next iteration. I don't know, but I can see the challenges that poses when you just kind of take it up another level, just from moving materials around to now integrating this into an overall process. I can see as being a pretty big challenge.
I agree.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a temptation to say, well, let's just keep all the technology on the bots, and the users can just walk up to the bot and see what they need to do, and kind of work with that, maybe a presentation scanner or something. And that obviously can work. We just feel that we're leaving a lot of value on the table when we do it that way in a lot of operations. So if we know where the person is and we know where the bot is, and we can task them simultaneously, and so the worker's not waiting for a bot to stop and turn on a light. It's actually being told, okay, you're going to meet the bot at a particular location. We've shown that we can unlock significant value by doing that.
I like that you talk about this in the sense of this whole worker augmentation and not leaving the people part out of this. We had a conversation with Drew Arnold from Newcastle a few weeks back where we talked about mobility and we emphasized this idea like there's a bit of a worker revolution going on right now where people in some of these places, like in these warehouses that have had to do the miles of walks every day are standing up and saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. It's wear and tear on my body. There's really not a need for it. Automation could help out here. And I think that kind of overcomes that misconception that sometimes people have of, well, if we're introducing the robots, it's because we want to get rid of the workers. No, we want to make the workers more efficient. We want to make sure that they are able to do their jobs faster, better, keep up with the demand of the world now that says everything has to be, on time, fast, super fast, faster than before, and getting everything out the door. And I think, again, if you approach it from that mindset of like, hey, I want to help your workforce get better, one, you're telling a compelling story, and two, to the workers, I think, that becomes a great story to them too. If you can go to your workers and say, hey, I'm going to make it so that you no longer have to walk a 3-mile circuit around the warehouse every 15 minutes or so to do your job just by introducing a few robotics. We're going to make your job a little bit easier, but we're also going to help you get faster and more efficient at it too. And I think there's a great story to be told there.
Yeah.
Again, in this world that we're living in, where everyone's trying to decide like what really matters to me when it comes to my work anymore, and labor shortages are becoming such a big issue. So,
yeah, change management is generally pretty easy. Yeah, for those reasons, right? We're making the job better. And from the standpoint of if you're thinking about competing for labor in a particular market. If you're offering jobs that are, well, kind of cool, you're working with robots, it's kind of cool, but also significantly, less physical effort involved, then, you're going to have an easier time attracting and retaining labor.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, and I don't know if you have any statistics off the top of your head, Mark, but because when we were talking to Drew in Newcastle, he was making some claims, that if you put in mobility carts, you can have 8x or whatever
right.
type of productivity around there. Do you have any initial thoughts or any initial studies that show that when we put in robotics, let's just go with material handling type of that we've been discussing here, is it usually like a 2x where they're seeing efficiencies and productivity grow out of it, or is it just too early to start getting into those kinds of numbers?
Well, certainly we've seen those kind of numbers. We've seen 2x, we've seen 3x. But it's still situational. It really does depend on the particular operation. Their pick density, their flow, their materials, the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah,
makes sense.
Fair enough.
So okay. Obviously, if the efficiencies, the labor savings, that's the stuff that people think is the tangible, concrete evidence of robots and cobots and how they work. But when you've worked with facilities that have embraced this, that have said, hey, let's bring in the AMRs, let's bring in sensor-driven robots, let's material handling, pick, pack, ship, whatever it is that they're embracing and bringing on board. What do you see happen as a whole? Like, what happens to the entire facility and to the operation and the enterprise as a whole once they embrace these robots?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that you see is that there's a growth in just kind of operational understanding. You begin to learn just the process of deploying these and using these solutions. You have much better visibility to material movement. You've got the full historical record of everything that moved. You've got insights into congestion, insights into, okay, what drives utilization of the solution and what doesn't. You end up with, hey, what's the right slotting strategy for this solution? You might have had a slotting strategy for what you had before. A lot of times folks are coming from pick to cart, and there's various tools to help you do that. But how do we optimize slotting, for this? How do we batch work effectively? And maybe we have, a mix of different types of bots and carts based on how we can batch work to get things through faster and more efficiently. There's all kinds of operational learning that takes place. And like I said, the basic flexibility is there to do whatever you want to do, with, depending on, you can adapt the payload of the bot, you can adapt the configuration of the top of the bot, based on how you want to batch orders. You can do all kinds of things to kind of tune the solution to your particular needs.
So is it fair to say that when you implement robotics, is AI kind of walking hand in hand? Because now you have this new visibility, right? You have more data on how things are moving within an environment. Is it just natural to say that, hey, analytics, artificial intelligence about how this is being used and how it could be used more smartly, is that kind of starting to play in now?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that's certainly the way we see things evolving, right? So, one of the things that you need for AI to work well is good, clean data from the edge, good, clean, repeatable data from the edge. Well, we're generating a lot of that. So I do think the tools will naturally evolve to leveraging AI more and more because they will have the data. When I was, before Zebra, I was actually running engineering for a large healthcare distributor for a couple of years. And, if we wanted to solve a particular problem or even answer a particular question, I had to send, industrial engineers out for maybe a week to gather data and observe and, maybe try some things. And then we get together and figure, okay, what's the best solution? Do we adjust our slotting criteria? What do we do? And in this world, you're just going to have all the data you could possibly want. And yes, AI tools, I think, are a natural fit for leveraging that.
Yeah, and I think that's where the value proposition is really going to kind of grow, right? Implementing the technology, yes, but then using it smartly to figure out how this can be utilized efficiently. And I think that's, I don't know what you think, Mark. I mean, I obviously you're going to start to see robotics. My guess would be in their larger facilities, right, where there's resources, there's dollars to put behind it, the economics behind utilizing robotics in large facilities is there. But I'm wondering how long it takes to get down to the SMB kind of manufacturer level. Maybe not that long. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're there.
Okay, there you go.
I've talked about how these tools are scalable and they're really simple to go live. Depending on the use case, we've seen SMB businesses deploy these with good success. Right out of the box. So absolutely, this technology is accessible to the SMB community, and it's accessible to the VAR community servicing those customers. If you have a good understanding of warehouse operations, you have a good understanding. Once you start directing and controlling things, real things in real time, it brings a lot of inherent complexity. But if you're familiar with that world, I think you can really get into this.
Just the kind of geeky thing that I think a lot of our solution integrators would love to get elbow deep into the kind of the data, right? Because we haven't really had that kind of visibility, which is I'm glad you brought that up.
And the robots aren't going to lie to you. They're not going to fudge the numbers. They're not going to tell you what they did or didn't do.
That's right.
They're just like that's just the raw data. You're going to get what you. You're going to see the truth of it there. So.
And in real time. And to Mark's point, he can make tweaks. So if you're an operations person in the warehouse, you can see the data in real time, make meaningful tweaks, and see that result, in real time type of a thing. That's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, along those same lines, and that analytics piece too, sensor technology is obviously growing in a lot of industries. And when we had an episode about RFID, we talked about, some of Fetch's robots that, have RFID readers built into them that can just, march up and down, a warehouse and just take inventory for you, just, again, cutting out, an extra person that needs to do that kind of stuff. And again, having regular, actionable, live, real-time data. So, this sensor tech can be used, for analytics, environmental maintenance, security, lots of different places. Tell us what you're seeing there, though. Are there any interesting use cases for like sensor-equipped robots that maybe people normally don't think of? Yeah,
of course, the bots themselves are roving sensor packs, just to keep track of where they are and operate safely and quickly. So that's what they are. But you mentioned our tag surveyor bot. So it's essentially an autonomous mobile robot that's got RFID antennas mounted on an RFID reader integrated into it. So we are seeing more and more customers and more product categories tagged. So we expect to see that to continue to grow. The core of that right now is fashion apparel, footwear, accessories, and all that's been item level tagged for some years. See that expanding out into other product categories, such as pharma and medical and automotive and what have you. And as soon as you have that, then now you've got the ability to really automate a lot of the effort that you might be expending today in inventory control. Let's send that bot around and look for product that's out of place. You can put an RFID tag on the bin location. You can put it on if you've got tagged product, and you can start to identify, hey, here's something where we need a human to come check this out because this is not in sync with the system. And as companies need to operate, everybody's operating faster, right? Nobody's getting more time to turn orders or to turn inventory. This is really important. If you have an inventory error, you will find out eventually, and chances are you'll find out the hard way. So a good operator is going to understand that good inventory control is foundational to meeting their goals. Whether it's customer service, financial, what have you. And so they'll be expending the appropriate amount of effort to keep really good control of inventory. Like I say, if you have a person problem, a data problem, or a product problem, or just damage in transit, it's going to show up as an inventory count error eventually. And the sooner you find it, the better, all around. So absolutely, I think that's important. And I do think we'll see, vision integrated with RFID to help round out some of the, the ability to perceive what, the physical world directly, as we say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm glad you went down to the vision kind of component. We're starting to get a little dangerous in our knowledge around vision and LiDAR and how it's being, but camera technology, our understanding is really where the game is going to be played, and the integration of camera technology, to your point, in this case, to augment, the sensing capabilities of the AMR or whatever the robot might be. So you do see the use of cameras, being brought in, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. We're about, 9 or 10 months since we entered the machine vision space ourselves with our our family of cameras and software to go do that, and you're really just starting to see some really interesting use cases on the logistics side. Both logistics and manufacturing are areas for that. But if you just extend the idea of labor is scarce and skilled labor is scarcer, I'd like to be able to do more with sensors if I can, and that's true from receiving all the way through shipping. So is this a good receipt? Is this shipment ready to go? Is it staged in the right place? All of those things that we really rely on workers to do today. Literally every material move, you're typically training that worker to verify, hey, the system thinks you're moving this, check and make sure it's really this. Wouldn't it be nice if we could kind of rely on sensors to do that? I think we'll see those use cases expand.
A bit of the nirvana, of where we'd all like to be is having that. Yeah.
Yeah. Quite literally the warehouse of the future there. But,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the one we can be excited about.
But hey, Drew, I'm sorry, Mark, real quick. When we talk about robotics, from the reseller standpoint, and not to throw you yet another curveball here, because you're a wealth of information, you've got great insights into like our value-added resellers, right? The typical, whether it's a Zebra reseller or whatnot. What is the realistic expectation that they should have on trying to integrate robotics into their sell this year and moving forward? I mean, is it the type of thing where they really need to start paying attention to what's happening in the robotics and starting to get educated on it? Or what would some of your advice be to, again, more of a traditional reseller that's playing in this manufacturing space?
Yeah, I think, you're going to see, in your customer base, more and more of this technology coming in. So if you are a skilled, there's all types of, warehouse materials management is a part of most of our partners' business to one degree or another. If it's your main thing, then you absolutely need to be educated on what's going on here and how it's likely to impact your customers. Because there's a lot that can be done with your current, if you're currently knowledgeable about, scanning and printing and mobile computing and integrating that into workflows, then you absolutely have a very important role to play, whether you're directly involved in the robotics or not, because that's going to change the workflows. It's going to have to adapt to those new workflows accordingly.
And is there going to be a channel, in the not just the implementation of the robot, but the ongoing maintenance of a robot and those types of things? Talk to us a little bit about what you might see as the future of what that looks like. Yeah,
it's interesting. So, one of the nice things about this technology from a warehouse operator perspective is that they are inherently redundant systems, right? If I have an AMR that goes down, I can just bring up another one. And in fact, if I unbox a new one, it can become aware of where it is and why it's there and start being productive almost on its own. So from the standpoint of, do I need a lot of on-site support? No, but I certainly need some. So, the traditional role of the reseller is maintaining that close customer relationship, having that local presence when it's needed. That's going to continue to be, very valuable.
Bingo.
Awesome.
Well said. And,
Yep.
and I think that's exactly the kind of the optics that a reseller should have moving into this space, is that it's going to be complementary. It's here. It's here now.
Yeah.
So you should absolutely understand it and how to integrate it. And there's ways in which you can augment your business and grow your business through the use of these types of technologies.
Can you imagine having a worker that just walks in the door and knows what they're supposed to do from day one? Don't have to worry about training, no orientation, no months of them messing things up and asking a bunch of questions.
Downloads all the instructions. It has the whole thing.
I can see the appeal of that.
Right, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much for talking to us about robots. Again, we're going to, here in a moment, dive into some specific questions from one of our VARs, actually, and maybe kind of go a little deeper from what you just mentioned here.
Yep.
But first, I want to, as always, thank our TEConnect sponsors, of which Zebra is one. We thank you for your support of the show and for lending us Mark today. Hey, if you like the show, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button for this episode, subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
So you don't miss out when new videos come out or other cool stuff that we're putting out there. We got our cooking shows coming back soon.
That's true. Yes,
Bon
lots of
Appetit
stuff.
has a new
Lots of
season
engagement.
coming soon. Yeah, so cool stuff to find there. And then if you're an audio listener, subscribe to us obviously wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're an Apple or Spotify listener, please leave us a review, 5-star rating. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know what you think about the show. And as always, if you have questions about the show, if you just want to give us some feedback, if there are topics that you are interested in hearing about, please reach out to us. You can find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, well, let's wrap up. Normally, we have our value of the VAR segment.
That's right.
We still do, but this one's one that's even more valuable than ever because the VAR themselves have told us what do they want to hear about, what's the takeaway they want from this conversation. So again, thanks to Cory from Arrowhead for suggesting the topic, and he also threw out a few questions that I'm going to kind of rattle off to you, Mark, and let you give us a little extra insight here. So his first question was, what size and type of customer has the best success rates or ROI with robots? So if a reseller's out there and they're trying to figure out where do I start with this, what kind of customer should they be looking for?
Yeah, so I'll take it from a couple of approaches. One is material movement. It's the operator-directed material movement. As I described earlier, that can be done with little to no real integration with the WMS or anything like that. Pretty straightforward. That's going to be in discrete manufacturing as well as in almost any logistics operation. You can find a few use cases typically in almost any logistics operation where they can leverage that. We've seen it used for, anything from, okay, we've done the sort for put away, take this to this put away zone, and the bot knows where that is and it goes. Dunnage, we're generating trash at replenishment or we're generating trash at pack. Let's get that over to the trash compactor, and the bot can do that all day, 24 hours a day. I think, one of the things you have to recognize is that a 24-hour multi-shift operation is inherently going to have a stronger ROI because they're going to be able to leverage that asset over multiple shifts, just like any other automation investment. That's going to be a plus. On the fulfillment side, the easiest fit is probably somebody that's already doing pick to cart. Chances are the types of items they're handling and the volumes that they're handling, the pick density that they have is all going to be a good match for transitioning to AMRs. And in fact, you can mix and match them together. One of the fetch advantages is what we call Cart Connect. You can actually kind of disassociate the AMR from the cart. And for some operations, if you want to pick direct to the AMR, you can. If you want to pick to a cart and just have the AMR, hey, run this over to pack out, you can do that too. Larger operations, typically stronger, just because if there is some integration costs, you're going to be able to amortize that over a larger user community, and you're going to get that bigger ROI. But for like we said, it's highly scalable. So I wouldn't discount SMB at all in terms of being a candidate for these solutions.
Good answer, yeah.
And I think a lot of resellers are going to appreciate that.
Yes.
Right?
Very much so. All right. And his next question was to tell us about a successful integration deployment. So do you have a particular success story where someone said, hey, we want to get in on this, and you saw it really take off and work?
Yeah. So, there's a bunch of them. You can go to fetchrobotics.com and read the case studies and see which one kind of fits your situation or the types of customers that you work with if you're a VAR, right? I would, take a good look at Waytech. So this is, I guess you call them SMB, electrical equipment distributor. So, a wholesale distributor. And they had automated with conventional technology. They were running up against their ability to, basically they were running up against the design capacity of the legacy automation and simply augmented that with some AMR-based material movement, some AMR-based fulfillment, and were able to exceed the design capacity of the building by another 25%. So really good ROI, lots of cost avoidance if they had to augment the traditional automated system, with more conveyor on the floor and all that brings in terms of, that can kind of impede the operational flexibility right there when you start bolting steel to the floor. So I think that is a really good example of what this technology can do, how it can be quickly integrated into an SMB account or customer and deliver the value right away.
Nice.
Love that. I love that use case because we all know that warehouse, I guess, I think it's the only thing, well, it's one of the biggest things that's being built in the commercial real estate space. Warehouse.
Right.
But what you're also starting to see is the utilization of existing space, especially in urban centers.
Yep.
Why I love this use case, or the one you were just mentioning there, the Waytech one, it brings more efficiencies to existing infrastructure, right? And that's brilliant. If you can increase 25% the throughput in an existing facility, that's meaningful.
Oh yeah,
by bringing in AMR. So that's a good one.
Yeah. I'll drop that link to that Waytech case study in the show notes for if you want to check it out. So last question from Cory here. What do you see as the future for robots in the warehouse, and when will stores /retail /grocery, et cetera, get in the game?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
A little bit, yeah. Well, the line between warehouse and store is getting a little fuzzy. I would say, and you referenced the warehouse build out in North America right now. The e-commerce, the urban e-commerce warehouse space situation is just exploding. So lots of investment, lots of fulfillment operations, going live out there, and a lot of them could benefit from these kind of solutions, and they will over time. I mean, certainly grocery is a unique case. We all have learned to order online grocery. And some of us have really liked the experience and going to stick with it. So a lot of that is, buy online, pick up in store. A lot of that is order online. So what we're seeing is a lot of innovation in that industry with what you might call MFCs, micro fulfillment center technology, essentially mini ASRSs that can be deployed even in the back of a store. And then customer fulfillment centers, larger urban operations or dark stores. Basically, it's a dedicated fulfillment operation. And we'll see a different mix of technology there. In terms of the role that AMRs will play, we see some of the MFC providers, the micro fulfillment center technology providers, are actually integrating AMRs directly into the solution, just to provide that same kind of operational flexibility. Chances are not every SKU is going to fit in the vending machine. Some of those SKUs are going to be conventionally stored. So that's a role for this technology there. I'm not sure we're going to see AMRs, out, doing fulfillment amongst the public on the store aisles anytime soon. But in dark stores, fulfillment centers, back of store, certainly there's a role for them there.
All right.
I like it.
Yep, I like it.
I'm a big fan of the grocery pickup, as you know. And
yes.
I can't say I'd be too upset to know that there was a robot doing that picking for me instead of that person that either gives up and they can't find what I asked for or gives me some weird substitution that has absolutely nothing to do with what I requested.
Well, that's half the issue right there is just, they need to have dedicated inventory so that when they take an order, they know they can fulfill it. Because otherwise, if it's out on the store floor, they don't really know whether they're going to be able to fill it until they get there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, really good point.
And again, that's where that analytics piece and that real-time data could come in handy. If if the bot's doing the picking of it, it can immediately pull it out of inventory and make it so that you don't see it on the website when you go looking for it 5 minutes later even. So I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much, Cory, for those questions. I hope those answered that for you. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out to Mark, to our friends at Zebra and Fetch, to ask more questions if you have them about this particular industry. Hey, let's wrap things up with our What's Tech Connecting with You segment. This is where we get to talk about something fun from the world of science, tech, innovation, something that's caught our eye, got our attention, could be making us excited for the future of humanity, or certain that we're all doomed to robot apocalypse for all we know. So, Mark, I'll let you start. What's Tech Connecting with You right now?
Well, I think we've covered it. This is my world. This is the world I've been living in for the last several years. Very excited. This is back in the 80s when we were a bunch of young engineers building these systems. We really thought that we were going to take over the world, and we just ran into some technological limitations, let's say. But when you look at the robotic space today, mobile robots, anthro arms that are guided by the same kinds of vision and sensor technology, the MFCs that we talked about, the ASRS, all that's going on, it's just very exciting times. And we, obviously at Zebra, we're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, when you're working in a cutting edge tech world, it's kind of hard not to be excited about that every day. I mean, it's a different level that you get to live in there. I appreciate that. So.
Well, maybe you can spell it. Like, Mark, don't you ride bikes? Or if I remember correctly, do you ride bikes?
I do.
Yeah. So what's your interest in electric bikes?
Well, my body as it ages will determine my interest.
There you go.
Right now, not so much. We'll see.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
All
That's
right, Dean,
awesome.
what's TEConnect with you?
So they're putting the International Space Station out to pasture.
Oh, really?
They are. Yeah, I see. I thought they were going to kind of try to keep this thing living with SpaceX and all that. But the latest story was no, actually they're putting it out to pasture. They are officially going to let it come back tumbling into the earth, and burn up. Now we're a couple years away from that, but I guess they determined that it's just it's going to be a little bit more than they thought to keep it running. Meaning, Russian cosmonauts have been discovering mysterious cracks through the space station, which is kind of something you don't want. Other concerns include a broken toilet that really has never been able to be repaired, broken down oxygen supply systems, increased temperature, the overall increase temperature on the inside. Right. So, you just got to see these things that it sounds like it's a little compounding, and it's maybe we should put it out
hanging
to
on to that
pasture.
used car for just a little too long. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2030, I think, is when they're going to do the last little, I guess, jolt of jet or propulsion to send it on its course so that it'll just come tumbling and it'll end up in the ocean somewhere, the stuff that doesn't burn out. But I guarantee you that'll be on video.
I'm sure
somewhere.
I'm sure there'll be a nice light show.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of sad because that thing's been up there forever.
But I get it. If
like.
that much stuff's happening, it's probably time.
Yeah. All right. So it's time for the ISS. We still got 8 years. Yeah. That it'll be up and floating around there, but
doesn't make me too excited for the folks that have to go up there and hang out. It's like, let's see, the toilet's broken. There's a weird crack over there. Having trouble breathing. Yeah. Getting a little hot under the collar.
It's hot in here.
Hopefully it makes it to that 2030 point.
Oh, man. Yeah, what's that connecting with you?
All right, here's a headline that really resonated with me. The average person doesn't have a chance with the smart home. So this is an article from TechCrunch, and it really did resonate with me.
Is it robotics? Or are we going to robotics?
No, it's about the idea that there's so much smart home technology that's out there, but the compatibility of it is so off the charts and in so many different directions. You might
really good point.
Google Assistant. Some stuff works with Google, some just with Alexa, some with Apple, some does or doesn't work with HomeKit. And there's basically talking about how folks even that are very tech savvy, and I'll be honest, I haven't done a lot of exploration into a lot of this stuff because it does feel that way to me. When I started looking at it, I go, okay, well, if I get this, I'm supposed to have Alexa. I don't have Alexa. I don't care about Alexa. If I have this will work with my HomeKit. This will do that. Right. It does feel like there's just too many disparate types of technologies that aren't really talking to each other.
That's a really good point.
So that this article basically is about the idea. This author was talking about just when he was just moved into a new home or built a new home and was interested in trying to incorporate some smart home technology and how much trouble he had, and he had to do a lot of research and really settle in on very specific technology and brands. He had to basically say all right, every single switch in my house has to be from this brand. I can't mix and match because things will get wonky if I do. But he does also mention at the end of the article that there may be some light at the end of the tunnel here and some relief because there is a standard that's being somewhat adopted and that a lot of these major companies are jumping on called Matter. They're just referred to as Matter. They promise to provide a foundation for connected things by ensuring they can all talk to one another regardless of which ecosystem you're in. They even suggested that there'll be some software updates that you can use within existing devices that you already have to help them connect to the Matter ecosphere.
This is brilliant.
And work together. So hopefully that's happening on the horizon so that maybe when we all actually want to do these big, massive smart homes, everything's all connected together and that we can actually incorporate it into one app, one service, whatever your preference is, and not have to go out and piecemeal a bunch of stuff together.
Dude, I feel the pain here because I'm an Apple guy, right? I got my iPhone, I got my Mac, but we were looking into just installing a Ring doorbell and maybe some basic alarm system in our home because I'm traveling more, blah, 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 blah. I'm done because none of it is compatible with Apple.
Yeah, I have different apps for my cameras,
world.
different apps for my security system, different apps for my smart home. Just at Christmas time, we had a smart plug that we used for the fireplace for some lights up there or whatever. Yeah. And even that was a logistical nightmare just to figure out how to get it connected to my Wi-Fi properly. And once it did, I was finally able to get it up and running, but it's a whole separate app I've got to use just to turn stuff on and off. I can't just say, hey, Siri, turn it on. So it's stuff like that just starts.
Maybe Mark has this figured out. Mark, do you have a smart home that you've got is all figured out?
I have one brand of camera on my doorbell, and I have another brand of camera sitting in a box.
There you go.
See? All right. So I think,
Well, if
I
Mark
think we're
can't
all in
figure it
agreement
out,
here.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So hopefully
yeah.
Matter
Matter
will take care of this for us, and it mentioned so we don't have to keep using the dreaded Raspberry Pi in order to try to piecemeal everything together. So have to become like legit tech heads. So.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Mark Wheeler from Zebra, thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining
Mark.
us today.
Thanks, John Dean. Pleasure.
Definitely. And hey, until next time, keep watching out for that space station. It could come falling on our heads at any time now.
Don't let that happen.
Please don't let that happen. And as always, please stay connected. Dean, we just spent an entire episode talking about robotics.
Yes, we did.
Mostly in the world of warehousing and distribution. But if your customers aren't quite ready for that leap yet, something that you can do right now is to help them update their mobile technology.
Absolutely.
So worldwide, there are approximately 15 million mobile devices using the Windows operating system in warehouses, with an estimated sales potential of $2 billion US.
Wait, $2 billion?
$2 billion. That's
There you
a
go.
lot of money in a lot of devices, many of which are probably Zebra. But let's be honest, we know that Windows is kind of on its way out.
Yes, a little bit. We've been talking about that migration.
Exactly.
Yes.
So shifting warehouses from Zebra legacy devices to modern Zebra Android mobile technology represents a large business opportunity for Zebra and our channel partners.
It is ongoing, no doubt.
This outdated technology means that your warehouse customers won't be able to keep up with changes like the e-commerce boom, same-day delivery expectations, labor shortages, and, of course, Microsoft's end of support for enterprise window devices.
I mean, come on, let's go.
It is. It's time. Come on. It's time. I know, again, we always talk about being Apple guys, but we know in this space, Android rules.
is.
Let Zebra help you modernize, migrate, and retain your warehouse business with swift, smooth Android devices. I love the sound of that.
Yes.
Swift,
Very
smooth
nice,
Android
yes.
devices. Check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar Zebra representative to learn more.